All right. We're gonna jump into we're gonna continue in the book of Isaiah this morning. We've been looking at Isaiah coming through Advent this year and looking at some of his kind of understanding of how things were to turn out. And I want to invite you into the reading this morning. It's Isaiah 35, and it's verses 1 through 10. It says this. It says, "The desert will be the parched land. The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The glory of Lebanon will be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. Strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong. Do not fear, your God will come. He will come with vengeance. He will, with divine retribution, he will come to save you. Then will the eyes of the blind be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like a deer, and the mute tongue shout for joy. Water will gush forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground bubbling springs. In the haunts where jackals once lay, grass and reeds and papyrus will grow. And the highway will be there. It will be called the way of holiness. It will be for those who walk. It will be for those who walk on that way. The unclean will not journey on it. Wicked fools will not go about on it. No lion will be there, nor any ravenous beast. They will not be found there. But only the redeemed will walk there, and those the Lord has rescued will return. They will enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away." It's the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So, joy, like I said, I've already said, is what we're digging into today. Now, one of the things that us like preachers always have the temptation to do with a topic like joy is to say, man, like that joy is something that all us Christians should feel like, and it should be all the time, right? And that there should never be a moment where there's not joy, and if there is, there's something wrong. And if I got up and said that, like, you would know that I was what? Like crazy or lying, right? Or any of those things, because we all know that as we experience life, like joy is something that we come in contact with, but it is not necessarily a constant thing. So I want to start this way. All right, I want to start with this. I just want to ask the question, what is joy? Like, in your opinion, and especially from the young people, I want to hear you. Like, what is joy? And if you have a friend at your school named Joy, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about her. But what is joy? What do you think? And anyone? What is joy? Happiness? Okay, yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Becca? Okay, happy, you feel joy. Adelaide, you had your hand up too, right? No, okay, Henry. Okay, yeah. All right, we'll take the scientific approach. It is an emotion, is what he said. So what is joy? Some of the parents jump in, help them out. Like what? Yeah, come on, Joyce. Okay, a common feeling like in your heart. Certainly. Yeah. Anybody else? What is joy? Waking up to sunshine. All right. That's good. Yeah. You got it, Adelaide?
Joy is like the happiness of your body and a feeling that you have. It's just like complete happiness.
All right. I'm following you.
It's a bit of Jesus.
It's a bit of Jesus, absolutely, and your heart, absolutely. And and you were talking about happiness, but like you were feeling like that wasn't complete, right? Like that joy is something bigger than happiness. And I absolutely 100% agree with you on that. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, joy is one of those things that it's hard to really pin down. Did any of y'all feel that? I asked the question, what's joy? And you feel like, man, I should be able to answer this, but like I can't for some reason, right? Like, yeah, it's kind of hard to pin down. And that's why a lot of times what you get when you start the conversation about joy is you begin to get images. And Tony shared one with us, the image of sunshine on your face. And I don't know if y'all do this in the wintertime, but like walk outside the building for a little while just to let the sun shine on you, right? Like that. And then you start to get other images of what joy is, but then those images become really personal and they become ways that you experience or have experienced joy. And it can get lost to other people. So Isaiah in this scripture is bringing an image of joy. All right, he's bringing an image of like Adelaide was saying, that happiness, but it's just got to be more than happiness, right? It's more than that, and he's bringing this image of a world where he says, he goes in to talk about the blind see. Right, and he goes in to talk about that the scorched desert, like and you think of the like cracked desert where the mud is, big cracks in it, and that those places where it seems certain that death and destruction is prominent, that a place like that becomes a pool of water, right? That's in some of the imagery that he used. And he used another image that I absolutely love. He says that that joy is, or that this space, this far off space is like, it's like a highway in the desert, right? It's like a raised up path that is easy to follow, all right? That it's, and it even says that this highway is like, it's a place where not even a fool will get lost, right? Like, even if you're a really bad driver, right? Like you'll bump up against the guardrails, but you still stay on the path, right? And that this joy, this hope for the future that Isaiah is talking about is kind of found in some of these images. It's a beautiful, beautiful image of the world that he puts forth, where there's healing and where there's restoration and where there's completeness and where there's life, like the water that gives life, and all of these images. But Isaiah knows, and don't get lost in the idea that Isaiah thinks that it's all going to be that, or that it's all always that. Isaiah knows that the world is not that all the time. And if you go just the chapter before this, in verse 34, Isaiah, he paints a very different picture of what everything is like. And it's a scorched earth kind of image that you get, where it's just scorched desert, right? And where there's only thistle and other plants like that are not good for much other than like stinging needles in you and stuff like that. Bougainvilleas, like they're pretty, but they're like, they shouldn't be in this world, all right? Like, I don't like those at all. But that's, and it's this image of the world, and then he puts that in 34, and then in 35 he gives this other image of how things could be should they become complete. And he's longing for better than what he sees around him, what he feels around him. And what Isaiah is doing is something that we all kind of find ourselves, it's a place we all find ourselves as well. Is it this place where it's a gap between what should be, what we would hope things should be, and where things are. That there's a difference between what we hope the world would be and how things are currently. And there's this gap between the two. And in Christian terms and through what Christ did, we call this gap, we talk about it as the already but not yet, where God's joy is already able, we're already able to come in contact with that, where we're able to experience that, where we're able to get a foretaste of it. But then we know that it's just not quite there yet. And you know that as you live in relationships with other people, right? And you know that things aren't quite as they should be as we see stuff going on around us and in the world. This already but not yet is where we are, and I want to invite you to grow in this understanding of joy, this understanding of the world. I want to invite you to grow in the way that you come in contact with joy throughout this Christmas season. Because it's not just that we say, okay, well, yeah, things are messed up, so we just let it go and let it be at that. You don't just leave it there. There is a call on each of us to be people who are living into this image that Isaiah put forth, that we are willing to be people who are living into the image that Jesus put forth as he lived his life and how he treated people. And that call is on each and every one of us. And I want to invite you to take a step in that possibly during this Advent season. And I don't know what that means for you, to take a step towards living your life, more fully towards the image that Jesus has brought for us. But one thing that I do know is that it includes this, and it includes our willingness to be vulnerable. All right? Now, I know that that's a word that some of you might hear, and you're like, what? Vulnerable? Like, what in the world are you talking about? Like, why in the world would we want to do that? Like, we spend a lot of our lives trying to be not vulnerable. We spend a lot of our energy trying to make sure that our vulnerabilities are minimized, right? And we do that personally. We do that in our emotional life. We do that hopefully with your bank accounts and everything else, right? Like that's what we try to make sure that we're not vulnerable. Yet if we are to be people who are living towards this image of healing, this image of water in the desert, this image of blooming plants, if we're going to be people that are living towards that, we have to be willing to do the difficult work of looking inside, of being vulnerable. Now, not easy to take advantage of, but vulnerable in terms of allowing ourselves to search the depths of our souls, so that we can begin to work on or get rid of some of that baggage that we all carry. We all carry it. We all have it. It's that stuff that you'd rather not deal with. That stuff and maybe it's relationships, maybe it's addictions, maybe it's grief, maybe it's whatever it is. Like, we've got that stuff that we don't want to deal with. And what happens, folks, is we spend all of our time and all of our energy not dealing with stuff, all right? And when we spend that time and that energy not dealing with stuff, we do not get to experience the joy that is set before us. Now there are times where it's just grief is overwhelming. there are times where that's, whatever it is that you're in, like that's just going to be all that there is. And that's okay. And yet our willingness to be able to deal and be honest with ourselves and with others, that's what leads us, it continues to lead us towards this joy that's being talked about this morning. I'm borrowing from this morning a lady that her name's Brene Brown. It's B-R-E with a hyphen over it or an accent over it, and her last name's Brown. And if you haven't ever come in contact with any of her stuff, do. All right, like that's all I've got to say about that. Like please, if you go onto Google and type in Brene Brown and the power of vulnerability, watch that. And then if you watch it and need somebody to talk to about it, come talk to me. I'd be more than happy to get with you about that. But she puts this into perspective of this idea that we end up robbing ourselves of a lot of good that we could do, that we could be a part of, that we could see in this world, when we just choose not to deal with the stuff that we need to deal with. The image I always get, and I know none of the kids in here will understand this, but maybe some of you folks that are a little bit older than me might, but is Daffy Duck, right? And there's the dam that's there, and a little bit of water squirts out of the dam. He sticks his finger in it, right? And then there's another crack and a little more water, and he sticks his finger in that. And then the next thing you know, he's got everything stuck in these cracks that he can stick in them, and then the whole thing comes crashing down, right? That's what we risk when we choose not to deal with our stuff, right? And it's through lots of different ways that you can deal with it. It's through prayer, it's through counseling, it's through psychotherapy if that's what's needed. There's no shame in any of it. But the idea is that as we get onto this road, as we begin this journey of being honest with ourselves, with being vulnerable, that leads this whole world, everything in it, to be closer to that picture that Isaiah brought forth and here in the Old Testament. So joy, I want to invite you towards it this Christmas. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Pastor Matt. If you're able, please stand and we will conclude our service.